You are hallucinating. Right now. No, not in a weird, psychedelic movie kind of way, but in a way so fundamental, so constant, you don't even notice. Every single thing you see, hear, and feel isn't a direct photograph of reality. It's a guess. An incredibly sophisticated, life-saving, moment-to-moment guess generated by the prediction machine inside your skull. The catch? Sometimes, the machine gets it wrong. So why do two people watch the exact same event unfold and walk away with two completely different stories? How can you physically feel your phone buzz in your pocket, only to pull it out and see a blank screen? Tonight, we're not just asking these questions. We're putting your reality on trial. We are conducting an audit of the senses. The daring question isn't if we're hallucinating reality. It's are we simply constraining a constant, underlying hallucination with just enough evidence to get by. Welcome to the Science Audit, where we don't just learn the facts, we stress test the models you live by. And today's model is reality itself. Let's start with a thought experiment. It'll take 1 second. I want you to imagine that for just one heartbeat, every one of your senses goes completely silent. Total darkness. Total silence. No touch, no taste, no smell. In that black, silent void, what does your brain show you by default? The intuitive answer is nothing. A blank screen. But that's profoundly wrong. Your brain is never a blank screen. It's a projector, constantly running, constantly playing its best guess of what should be there. It's the ultimate autocomplete for the world, generating a rich, detailed forecast of reality, and then, almost as an afterthought, it checks the incoming data from your eyes and ears to see how well its forecast did. This isn't just a cool metaphor. This is the foundation of a revolutionary idea in neuroscience called predictive processing. And it flips our entire understanding of perception on its head. For centuries, we thought the brain was a passive receiver, like a camera, dutifully recording whatever light hits the lens. But the new model says the brain is an active forecaster, a tireless predictor of experience. At its core, the brain is what's called a Bayesian engine. Now, don't let the word Bayesian intimidate you. It's a simple, beautiful idea. It just means you start with a belief, a hunch, a prior about how the world usually works. Then, when new evidence comes in, you update your odds. Think of it like a weather app for your mind, running 24/7. It's constantly forecasting your immediate future. Okay, high probability of the bitter smell of coffee, followed by the familiar click of the keyboard, and the warm glow of the monitor. It predicts the feel of the chair under you, the weight of the air in the room, the specific face a friend will make when you tell a certain joke. In the technical lingo, these are top-down predictions. They are your brain's beliefs, flowing down from your internal model of the world. These predictions then collide with the bottom-up sensory signals, the raw, messy, ambiguous data coming from your eyes, ears, and skin. The magic happens in the collision. The brain compares its prediction to the data, and if there's a mismatch, a difference, that's called a prediction error. Think of it as your brain's little internal oops signal. And oh, I didn't see that coming. And the fundamental goal of your entire nervous system, from this perspective, is stunningly simple: minimize those oopses. Minimize surprise. Because in a world full of dangers and opportunities, being surprised is metabolically expensive, and often deadly. So how deep does this guessing game go? It's not just a surface-level trick. Our entire cortex is built like a giant pyramid of guesses. Down at the very base, in the basement levels of your mind, your brain is making millions of tiny predictions per second about things you're not even aware of. The angle of an edge. The direction of a motion. The pitch of a sound. Higher up the pyramid, these basic predictions get bundled together to forecast more complex things. This collection of edges and colors is probably an object, a coffee cup. This series of pitches and rhythms is a word, my name. This pattern of facial movements signals an intention, my friend is happy. And at the very summit of this pyramid? That's where the grandest, most complex model lives. The one you call me. The self. The story of who you are, making sense of it all. Now here's the kicker. The anatomical proof. If you look at the wiring of the brain, the neural pathways carrying predictions down the pyramid, from your high-level beliefs to your low-level senses, vastly, massively outnumber the pathways carrying raw data up. It's not even close. Imagine a city where the rumor mill has 10 times more phone lines than the actual news reporters. In that city, truth doesn't come from the reporters shouting alone. Truth emerges as a delicate negotiation, a truce between the powerful rumors and the hard-won facts that keep them honest. That's your brain. That's your reality. Feeling a little skeptical? Good. That's what we do here. Let's take an evidence tour. Let's look at the receipts for this grand theory. First, the dress. You remember the internet-breaking photograph from 2015. Half of us saw a dress that was clearly blue and black. The other half saw a dress that was, with equal certainty, white and gold. How? It wasn't your screen. It wasn't a trick. It was a battle of predictions in your brain. The photo was horribly lit. The lighting cues were ambiguous. So your brain had to make a guess. It had to create a prior about the light source before it could determine the color of the dress. If your brain unconsciously assumed the dress was being lit by bright, yellowish indoor light, it would subtract that yellow light from its calculation, leaving you with the perception of blue and black. But if your brain assumed the dress was sitting in the bluish shadow of outdoor light, it would subtract that blue hue, and you would see white and gold. Two brains, same exact pixels, two wildly different but equally real experiences. Why? Because your brain's unconscious prediction about the lighting literally recolored the fabric. Next up, change blindness. Scientists have done this experiment. A person walks up to a stranger on a college campus to ask for directions. Halfway through the conversation, two guys carrying a giant door walk right between them. And behind the door, the person asking for directions has been secretly swapped out for a completely different actor. Different height, different hair, different clothes. The shocking result? Most people don't even notice. They continue giving directions to the new person as if nothing happened. Why? Because your brain has a powerful prior assumption that people don't just magically transform in the middle of a conversation. It assumes continuity. So it smooths over the gap, filling in what it expects to see. It predicts a continuous person, and it filters out the glaring prediction error as unimportant noise. Then there are motion illusions, those stationary images that seem to shimmer and move. They're designed specifically to hijack your brain's built-in expectations about how patterns of light and shadow should move in the real world. Your low-level motion detectors fire based on a prediction, creating a perception of movement that isn't actually there. It's a pure hallucination, engineered by a clever artist who understands your brain's guessing game. It's not just vision. Maybe the most profound example, the rubber hand illusion. Imagine you're sitting at a table. Your real right hand is hidden behind a screen. In front of you, where your hand should be, is a realistic rubber hand. A scientist then starts stroking both your hidden, real hand and the visible rubber hand with paintbrushes, in perfect synchrony. At first, it feels a little weird. You feel the sensation on your hidden hand, and you see the brush moving on the fake one. But then, after a minute or two, something magical and deeply strange happens. Your brain's model of your own body starts to update. The prediction engine starts to think, well, I see the touch on that hand, and I feel a touch at the same time and in the same way. The most probable explanation is that this rubber hand is my hand. The sensation migrates. You start to feel the paintbrush on the rubber hand. And then, to really seal the deal, the scientist takes a hammer and smashes it down on the rubber hand. And what happens? You flinch. You might even shout. You have a genuine, physiological fear response because your brain, for a moment, adopted a piece of rubber as part of your own body. Ownership of your own limbs isn't a fixed fact. It's a negotiated truce among correlated sensory cues. It's a model. It's a prediction. Even the most basic functions of perception are driven by this predictive machinery. Take your eyes. You think you see the world as a smooth, stable movie, right? Wrong. Your eyes are constantly jumping around in rapid, ballistic movements called saccades. If you were seeing the raw feed from your retinas, the world would be an unwatchable, blurry mess. So why does it seem so stable? Because of something called predictive remapping. Just before your eyes land in a new spot, your brain has already predicted what it's going to see there, and has preemptively shifted its internal world map. It creates the stability you experience before the data even arrives. And what about that oops signal, the prediction error? We can see it in real time. Using an EEG to measure brainwaves, scientists can play a repetitive series of tones, beep, 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 and your brain quickly builds a model. It predicts the next beep. But then, they throw in a deviant tone, beep, beep, boop, and instantly, a distinct electrical ripple appears in your brain activity, called the mismatch negativity. It's the brain's startled huh? Written in electrical ink. It's the physical evidence of a prediction being violated. Now here's where it gets really crazy. This whole time we've been talking about the brain passively updating its beliefs to fit the world. But what if that's only half the story? This is the twist called active inference. We don't just sit back and let sensations wash over us. We actively move and act in the world to make our sensations fit our beliefs. We sample the world in a way that confirms our predictions. You don't just guess that a coffee cup is heavy, you move your arm with a preset amount of force because you believe it's heavy. You don't just guess there's a face in the crowd, you reposition your eyes and turn your head to find the features your brain expects to see. If a room is too loud and chaotic, creating too much prediction error, you literally walk to a quieter street to reduce that uncertainty. You're not a thermometer passively measuring the temperature. You're a thermostat, actively changing the environment to match your desired setting. Perception, then, is not just a guess. It is a controlled hallucination. Your brain generates its best real-time hypothesis about the world, and that hypothesis is constantly being reined in, disciplined, and constrained by the data you actively collect. And just as importantly, it's constrained by all the other brains out there, whose own controlled hallucinations have to coexist in the same world. But wait. If it's all just inference, if my world is a controlled hallucination and your world is a controlled hallucination, what anchors any of this to the real? What stops us from just floating off into our own private fantasy worlds? A concept called model-based realism offers a sober, pragmatic answer. It says, yes, there is a mind-independent world out there. The territory exists. But we never get to touch it directly. We never hold the territory in our hands. All we ever have is the map, the probabilistic model our brain creates. The audit, the reality check, is brutally simple. Does your map keep you from getting lost? Does it allow you to navigate the terrain without costly, painful surprises? Your perception of a wall isn't real because it perfectly matches the quantum state of the atoms. It's real because if you predict you can walk through it, you will generate a very large and painful prediction error. Reality is what pushes back. Now, inside this system, there's a crucial volume knob. It's called precision. Precision is the level of confidence or certainty you place in a particular prediction or in the sensory data. It's about how much weight you give to your beliefs versus the evidence. Get the balance right, and you navigate the world beautifully. But what happens if that knob gets stuck? If you turn the precision on your priors, your beliefs, way up too high, they can start to dominate the incoming data. The world begins to bend to your hallucination. This is one way of thinking about what might be happening in conditions like psychosis, where deeply held beliefs can feel more real than the evidence of the senses. Conversely, if you turn the precision on your sensory data too high and the precision on your priors too low, you might drown in a sea of unstructured, meaningless data, struggling to see the pattern or the thread. Now, a critical note of caution here. The brain is not just a simple equation. These are powerful frameworks for understanding, not neat little boxes that perfectly explain every human experience. This is a frontier of research, connecting these deep computational ideas to the messy reality of human life. And what about the final frontier? The narrator in your head. The self. Is that real, or is it also just a story? From this perspective, memory is also a process of stitched inference. When you recall an event, you're not replaying a video. You're reconstructing it, using your current beliefs to fill in the gaps of a degraded signal. This is why people with a condition called confabulation can sincerely, vividly recall entire events that never happened. Their brains prioritize a coherent, believable story over a complete, accurate archive. In the famous split brain studies, patients whose left and right brain hemispheres have been disconnected can be shown to invent different explanations for their own actions, depending on which hemisphere is asked. Yet subjectively, the person feels like one, unified, indivisible whole. The self, it appears, might be the brain's ultimate model. Its most useful, powerful, and constantly maintained prediction for making sense of its own place in the world. Now, we have to be honest here at the science audit. The free energy principle, the grand mathematical idea from Carl Friston that suggests all of life is driven by this surprise minimization imperative, is both inspiring and fiercely debated. Critics fairly ask, where exactly is the Bayesian math happening in the actual meat of the brain? How testable is this grand unified theory at the level of individual neurons? The honest answer is that we have a profoundly promising framework, and many specific, testable pieces like mismatch negativity, but we do not yet have a final, complete theory of consciousness or the mind. The audit is ongoing. So in this world built from guesses, how do we ever agree on anything? How do we reality check our controlled hallucinations? Through what's called intersubjective alignment. We use measurement, language, and tools that allow our separate brains to slowly converge on stable, shared models. A thermometer takes my private, subjective impression of warm and your private impression of cool and anchors them both to a number we can agree on. A telescope extends the eye and forces our mythological stories about the stars to contend with the hard evidence of starlight. In a way, science itself is our largest, most organized predictive engine. It is a system of organized doubt, where models are forced to make specific predictions, and those that fail to reduce prediction error get ruthlessly revised or thrown out. And here, the vastest ideas become the most intimate. The exact same Bayesian logic that allows an astronomer to infer the existence of a black hole from the way starlight bends around it is the same logic that allows you to infer your friend's mood from the slight tilt of their head. Our nervous systems are small galaxies of expectations, all orbiting the shared gravity of a world that pushes back. And awe isn't an escape from this rigorous system. Awe is the sharp intake of breath you feel when a new model, a new way of seeing, fits reality more deeply, more elegantly than you ever imagined possible. So what do we do with all this? First, practice epistemic humility. Treat your strongest beliefs as what they are, highly probable hypotheses, not infallible truths. Real truth is simply what best resists prediction error over the longest time, across the most observers, and under the scrutiny of our best instruments. Second, notice how your own internal state tunes your predictive engine. Your mood, your culture, the very words you use, they all shape your priors. Deliberately change your inputs. Read novel books, talk to diverse people, walk down different streets. You won't just learn new things, you will literally start to see a different world. Third, recognize that the whole enterprise of science is a powerful design for being wrong in a productive way. We build incredible machines whose only purpose is to amplify our mistakes until they become so obvious we can no longer ignore them. The final philosophical takeaway is this: we don't see reality as it is. We don't even see a perfect representation of it. We enact a world that works. Meaning isn't something you find out there, hidden under a rock. Meaning emerges right at the turbulent boundary where our internal stories meet the unforgiving feedback of the world and somehow, against the odds, manage to survive the audit. To synthesize it all into one sentence, perception is not a camera, it's a controlled hallucination, constantly disciplined by evidence. Our brains generate a world, and the world pushes back. And that shared space where the hallucination holds up under that relentless push, that is what we call real. Now for a challenge. For one day, I want you to keep a prediction diary. It's simple. Before you open a door, make a conscious guess about the temperature on the other side. Before you read a text message, predict its emotional tone. And when you're wrong, which you will be, don't just brush it off. Notice the little jolt. The subtle update. Notice how your body registers the prediction error. A change in heart rate, your posture, your mood. Ask yourself, which of my predictions are truly mine? Which ones did my culture give me? And which ones do I actually want to keep? This is just the beginning of the audit. If you never want to see the world the same way again, and you want a daily dose of challenging the very fabric of your reality, make sure you hit subscribe and ring that bell. And let's get the conversation started. Down in the comments, I want to know, what's one time your brain's autocomplete for reality got it hilariously or weirdly wrong? Share your story. If exploring how your brain invents your present moment was mind-bending, you have no idea what it does with your past. To dive into the science of how memory is constructed, click the video right here on your screen. Thank you for stress testing reality with us. This is the Science Audit.